Good evening, Cheese Room, and welcome to yet another night of Monday night review of a Spurs defeat in what feels like a never ending season. But good news, the end is in sight. 7 days and counting, and we can chalk this one as one to be forgotten. Slotting into tonight's show, starting with top right, Gibbo. How are you doing, Gibbo?
Yeah, really good, mate. Had a little bit of time off, but glad to be back to talk about another defeat. I can't wait to start getting into it. And yeah, looking forward to next Monday.
Yes, cannot wait. And joining us from the States, as ever, on our Monday night, Jack. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it as always.
No problem. Well, thanks for coming for us. 'Cause I know you get better offers now with the Spotify pod. So,
Don't. Stop it, Craig. Stop it.
And always joining us, the celebrity that is fast becoming Becky. Becky, rubbing the shoulders with the stars, I see again this weekend.
Yeah, I had a nice chat with Jamie Weir, I have to say. Yeah, I went to the supporters event on Friday. It was. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a celebrity. But yeah, great to be here. It's 2 games left, 1 game left, 1 game left.
Yeah. Just one
game,
mercifully.
That's it.
Just one.
Just one. It feels like it's been a long, long time. So, as always, 26 of you already joining, 27 to listen to us talk about Spurs and dissect another defeat. Please do like and subscribe. It's really important to the show. The more you like, the more you subscribe, the more reach we get, and the greater we can make the content for you guys. As always, if you want us to discuss anything or if you've got any opinions on what we're saying, please do write a comment. We do read them all, and we occasionally point out the ones if you're particularly interested, and we will discuss it. And if you don't agree with us, tell us also. That happens a lot. So let's get straight into it then. Becky, you was at the game on Saturday. Start with the lineup. What was your thoughts around this lineup when it came out? By the way, whoever did this slide obviously didn't realise the formation we actually played, but the players are right. So I think John did this, so clearly he just couldn't see past.
I think at the moment, every time you kind of see Sanchez in the lineup, you start to worry. It was 2 games in a row that we haven't seen Dyer, but to not see Romero either, and then Højbjerg. It was nice. I must admit, it's nice to have Basuma have a start. I think after Villa, he deserved to start. He was probably one of the better players at Villa. Seemed to have a pattern of Longley and Davis now, but maybe after conceding the second goal, that'll stop soon too. Now, Danjuma, yeah, nice to see a start for him. Charlison, yeah, I think I've said before, Højbjerg has his moments, but apparently him and Romero were injured. So, I would talk to people in the ground when we got in because it's a stupid early kickoff, and I was having to get up early and in the hotel, and everybody kind of gets to the game on an early kickoff, not really knowing what day it is and where everybody is and everything. And so we got in the ground and we were all like, oh, okay, well at least there's some changes being made, and you can't complain that there aren't being changes made, and people have asked for Højbjerg to not play and not Dyer play, and the problem is our strength in depth is not great, so we have to have Sanchez instead and that sort of thing. So nice to see some changes, but it inevitably didn't make any difference.
Yeah. Jack, what did you make to the lineup? Excited to be seeing 4-2-3-1 back on the Spurs?
Well, I woke up about 6:45 a.m. for a 7:30 a.m. start on the East Coast of the United States for this, and I looked at the lineup, and the first thing is my app, like John's app, tried to show me that this was a formation, and I looked at that and said, okay, it's definitely not the formation. But I was trying to figure out what it was, and then once I tried to figure that out, all of a sudden realized who was playing center back, and I thought about not getting up out of bed and coming to watch because my reaction was we're either losing this 5-0 or we'll pitch a clean sheet. I didn't see a lot in between. Obviously, we did get something in between, but I was glad for Basuma. Danjuma starting, felt like, nice, I guess, but I don't think anyone expects to see him with us next season. I wouldn't think. So I kind of don't know the point there. But I was nice to see Basuma, and I was somewhat excited to see him actually get an opportunity to start.
Yeah, me too. Gibbo, what was you worried about with that lineup when you saw it?
If I'm honest, mate, I was happy to see Basuma. I do really like Basuma. Obviously Kane, but I didn't really think a lot to it. I know this sounds awful, but I'm not really that bothered at the minute. I just want to get through the season. So like I saw it, 4 at the back, Emerson and Davis, fullbacks. But I didn't really think nothing got me excited about it, mate. I find it all just a little bit like meh at the minute. And as we'll get into it, I thought the first half was pretty decent, and then it obviously went to how it went. But yeah, I saw it, looked at it, went on with my day. That's how I feel at the minute, mate, about it. I know it's, you know.
Yeah. I was quite excited about the lineup, particularly not the line. I wasn't excited about the back four. I was excited to see Decky in that number 10 role and to see if he could do anything in that number 10 role, because it's something that we've talked about on here before, about seeing him play behind Kane. Jack, how did that work for you? Did you see that worked him in the number 10 role?
Yeah, I think it's hard to judge on just 45 minutes because everything went so wrong in the second half. But you know, he has said himself that he sees his favorite best used position is as a number 10. I think that, you know, I would like to see whoever comes in to give him a shot at that, assuming he's bought. I mean, obviously that's still open question as to whether or not the club's going to drop the money to buy that loan out, I guess. But you know, I wouldn't mind seeing the opportunity, because if he could actually develop into an attacking midfielder position, it does save you potentially having to go out on the market and finding someone for that role. So I wouldn't mind seeing him. I know he's had pretty much a crap season overall, interrupted by lots of injuries, and even when he's come back, he's been iffy form. But I certainly would be willing to give him a shot, at least as one of the options in that position next year. Because you could actually have a situation where both he and Kane dropping deep provides some fluidity of your front line and maybe cause some trouble for defenses. So, you know, that's assuming both are at the club, obviously.
We have to sign him, don't we, in the summer, Becky?
I think so. Yeah, I think he showed. I'm reading all the comments. Everyone's saying about it was a good first half. I was quite hopeful at halftime. Yeah, we look more like our old selves, really, kind of high press, you know, sort of bounding forward, lots of players forward. I thought Kulusevski looked a little bit more. He seemed a little bit sharper. I said to the person standing next to me, it's this sort of idea. It's like when Son was injured, that kind of snap second hesitation just does him, and you know, he gets closed down or he gets pushed out wide or whatever. But it just seemed to have a little bit more about him. Yeah, it's just like sitting here. This is the first chance I've really had to think about it, because it's such a mad weekend. It's so busy. Sat down now thinking, the drop off in the second half was just really, really crazy. You know, we looked reasonably stable in the first half. I know you're saying about Sanchez, and I was saying to the person, you know, I remember against Leicester where he conceded really, really early on, right in front of us in the South Stand, and gave away that penalty, and you know, struggles to kind of stay on his feet. But he looked reasonably assured. And then second half, you know, Longley was hesitant, Davis was all over the place. You know, it just completely changed.
There was some disagreement in the Cheese Room group chat this weekend. Not unusual, by the way, those listening, around Tottenham's first half display. I was at the game, as Caller was, and we were both commenting that we thought, as you have, Becky, actually, it was a good first half. What did you make to it, Gibbo? What changed in the second half? Was it that Brentford were bad in that first half, or was it that Brentford just were so much better in the second?
I think they were obviously so much better in the second half, but I thought Spurs were decent in the first half. The movement was good. Well, it was better. There was more movement, a lot sharper. Like the thing with Kulusevski is, I know, like Becky said, he did look a bit sharper, but he still looks like he's a little bit off the pace. Like at the start of the season, he's never been quick, but he was able to move and just get past someone, and then his strength would get him in front. And at the minute, he looks like he's even struggling to just shift the ball and get past someone. but he looked a little bit better. We made some good chances. I don't think Brentford were fully on it the first half. And then the second half, they've gone in. We'll come on to it in a minute probably, but they've obviously changed things tactically. Thomas Frank has. Mason sent the lads back out to do a little bit more of the same. They've changed tactics. And as Ben Davis, one of our senior pros, said, they couldn't cope with the change in tactics, which is really pathetic coming from a guy who's played as many games as he has. We've got quite a few senior pros on that pitch, so a little bit worrying when stuff like that said. But I think tactically, mate, Frank changed it. We didn't know what to do, and we just ended up going through the motions. And the minute we went behind, didn't ever really do anything to try and sort of like snatch the game back.
We'll come back to that point, Gibbo, if you don't mind. Before we move on to the dismal performance that we had in the second half, let's just dwell on our goal. Kane free kick routine. Becky, you would have been looking right down the throat of that from behind, I'm guessing. How did it look from where you sat in the stadium?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter yesterday about Jackson straight to me when he scored a free kick, and I went, not technically a free kick because Kulusevski passed it to him. But yeah, we were literally right behind it and saw it kind of curl in. You had a good view there, being in Norfolk as well.
Yeah. It was great. Yeah,
it was. He looked really happy as well, didn't he? He looked genuinely really happy that, I think, but we just didn't kick on from it.
No, it was a great goal. What did you make to the goal, Jack?
I was actually distracted, and so I was also fooled. I thought maybe he had actually. I had to ask my son. I was like, did he just knock that in off free kick? He's like, no. He's like, it was passed to him. It was the start. I mean, if you'd asked anyone how do we have a good afternoon, you'd say, well, don't concede. Like, we've been conceding goals left and right early. I don't know how many it is, 8 or 9 in the first 15 minutes of several games, and that's what you want. Is control the ball, don't let them have it. Get an early goal, and that would be the recipe for success. You want to get the crowd behind you. You did everything right. It's interesting, even in the second half, as we all know, it was abysmal, but it's interesting. Our possession was higher in the second half. Our shots were more in the second half. Chances created were equal. No, statistically, I was looking at this, we were actually technically better, which we know we weren't in the second half. So it tells you sometimes stats don't always tell the whole story, but Brentford were much more intelligent. They changed their tactics and formation. But no, that first goal was brilliant. I mean, I think that was just lovely, and you could tell from the coaching staff that was clearly something they had worked on. That wasn't something they just came up with on the pitch. It was clear from the reaction from the bench that was something that they had designed and put in. And it's nice because the one thing that's gone right is our set pieces this year. If you look at the number of goals that have been scored, it's got to be one of the highest in the league.
Yeah. He took the ball very early because, of course, we've got no Perisic, we've got no Porro. So I sort of turned to him and went, "Oh, Sonny, take it." Nope, Kane's got it in his hand, which is fine when he scores it. But I think
that's why I was distracted. I saw him over the ball, and so I was like, "Oh, I don't need to watch this."
Yeah.
and I guess what that goes to show, Gibbo, is the appointment of Gianni Vio is probably one of the most successful things we've seen this season, because I think we talked right at the beginning of the season. It feels like a long time ago, I know, around how we were excited to see us actually have some set pieces with intent behind them and have a plan to our set pieces. And I think that's beared fruit throughout the season. It has been one of the positives, hasn't it, Gibbo?
Yeah, mad, isn't it? Like, when we were good, we thought, if we could start scoring a few from set pieces and stuff, we could really crack on here. And then we go like we are now, and we've started, if it really hadn't been for set pieces and stuff like that, we'd be really struggling. So, but yeah, it is good to see, isn't it, that and he stayed, hasn't he? They've kept him on. So obviously he hasn't gone with Conte. So hopefully that will long continue. But yeah, nice to see a score from a free kick situation. It's not straight from a free kick. They made the angle a bit better for Kane, rolling ball. So maybe that's something else they'll work on. Now we've got one game left. They can make the most of it.
Yeah, I don't know the stats, but if you look at Kane's goals, this season, a lot have come from set pieces, haven't they? Whether it be from corners or whether, in the main. So, I mean, it's clearly been an effective part of what we've done this year. And you're like to think whatever.
His
sorry,
stat about having the most headed goals, isn't it? Because I can remember Wolves when was it Perisic maybe did and someone headed it back on. Even in the first game against Southampton, I seem to remember something kind of coming over and someone sort of heading it back. And Davis has scored, hasn't he? And it's been that kind of near post. And there's definitely been that situation where there's someone at the back post to kind of pull, pick a back header in.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. And on the indirect free kick, as it was, what I was really impressed with where I was sitting and looking down on it was, I can't remember now who the two players were. Maybe Gibbo, Jack, you saw. There was two players that was in front of the wall blocking the keeper's view, and then they did that last minute rush into the wall.
One of them.
Yeah, I believe so.
One of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the constant talking between those two and those standing over the free kick and making sure there was, you could see there was real precision almost to the routine. Really good to see. And what really excited me, Gibbo, one of the things you've been talking a lot about, it's the first evidence I've seen in a while of actually coaching happening on the training pitch.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? That, coaching's a massive thing in football. So the better you do it, the more you have of it, you should get better. But I think Mason's well out of his depth, mate. Really, he's this sounds awful, but I think he's just an academy coach. Really, you swallowed a football cliches book, but but you can see he's at least doing the basics and doing bits of work with them on the training ground, whereas the geezer before just seemed to coach him to sit back and play on the counter attack. So it's nice to see, mate, and hopefully going forward we'll get a really good coach in and he'll work on lots of different things, which is like when you look at Man City, Villa, all these who have got good coaches in and they play good for, even like Brentford in the end, tactically change things during the game. It helps a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What was really funny about the goal as well, building on from it, is Jack turned to me straight away and went, "That should be goal of the season." And bear in mind, we were at the supporters club event on Friday, so we knew who had won goal of the season. And he was like, "Oh, Kane can't win it now because it's already been decided, and that should have been goal of the season."
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I think it was probably goal of the season. Going then on to the second half, which we know was dismal. I'm not planning on reliving it too much. We've done enough of that over the last season. But one of the things that I did want to pick up, Gibbo, your point around Ben Davies' comments after the game when he reflected that they changed tactically and we didn't know how to cope. And you were and have been very critical of Davies in that. Talk us through why you're critical of Davies and the comments that he said.
Well, if Mace, we've meant to have this scene. What do they call them? This little group. I call them senior pros. Yeah.
The committee.
So they load of old bollocks. They've got a coach, a very young, naive, not naive. What's the right? Very. He's just a young coach, an experienced coach. Ben Davies has played in World Cups for Wales. He's been around the block a bit now, and there's players on that pitch who are experienced players, and then they lose, like they did, and they come out with just a load of old guff like that. Oh, they changed. I mean, even if Mason on the side then can't see it and doesn't know what to do, maybe a few of you experienced pros get your heads together and try and sort it out on the pitch. It's pathetic. This is the type of garbage.
He was particularly poor for the second goal, wasn't it? Yeah, because Skip made the third goal. He was watching from where we were in the south stand. You could see he was kind of like that, and it kind of then landed. He was all over. You just
don't want him in that position up against pace. But it's a cop out, in my opinion. It's just like it's passing it's sort of like, oh, it's an excuse. Oh yeah, they changed it tactically and we didn't know what to do. What do you mean you don't know what to do? You've been a professional footballer for X amount of years. You're a senior pro. You've got other senior pros around you. How about taking some responsibility on the pitch? And it's just stuff like that that really annoys me and sums up why Spurs are where they are now. It's sort of like it's slopey shoulder stuff.
Too comfortable.
Yeah, slopey shoulder. Can I see this comment in here, which is what we'll get on to? If like a new coach comes in and wants to play 4 at the back, Royale might have improved this season. But if we've got Royale and Ben Davies as fullbacks, we ain't finishing no higher than we do now. And then to like have the game sort of Davies had, and then come out with an excuse like that, and actually say it in front of to the media. I find it really difficult, mate. Really, it's so poor, and it just shows the mentality and the culture. Like, I know they're words that we keep, but it just shows the mentality and the culture when they're coming out with shit like that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think the blame sits more on Mason's door there and his feet, because I think if the players, I said to you, didn't I, Gibbo? For me, if the players identify that something's changed tactically, it's not necessarily in the players' gift to change our tactics or change our approach. That's what, we work in a very compliant, all football clubs work in this compliant method where everything comes through for the manager. We don't do audibles, do we, like American football.
But you got a voice, haven't you, Craig?
Yeah, and that's the bit I was going to get onto.
Mate.
If the culture is such that they feel they can't go to Mason and say, Mace, this isn't working, that is an issue. Sorry, Jack, was you going to come in on something there?
Well, I think you hit on something there, because as Gibbo was on his polite rant, I was thinking about this a little bit, and I wonder how much of the last, particularly in the Conte era, maybe less so during Jose, I'm not really sure, but so much has been drilled into is you don't have discretion on the pitch. You played this system, here's your patterns of play, here's where you're supposed to be. Everything is drilled into you. There is no expression, there's no creativity. Unlike the thing that's getting a lot of attention, and it may be blown out of proportion, but they reportedly, when De Bruyne told Pep to shut up, right? And we've got this, we can figure this out, just relax, or whatever that whole exchange was about, right? And Pep was like, he even said it in a press conference. He's like, yeah, he was right. It's fine. So that's an example of a senior player with a lot of experience stepping up and saying, no, we know what we're doing here, type of approach. So to your point, Gibbo, it's possible these guys have played long enough that they could say, hey, we're getting torn up through this pattern. We need to make this adjustment. You're going to be here and you're going to be here. You're going to take that guy. And that would be happening on a regular pitch that you weren't in the Premier League. But I think to your point, Craig, they have been drilled such that maybe that freedom, flexibility, responsibility has been taken away from them the last couple of years. And not that that's an excuse, by the way, but it's a possibility.
A captain could go over to the coach, couldn't he? Especially as they're mates as well, supposedly. Look, we're getting done here or done there. We could do with changing something. Even if it's not someone telling Mason to shut up or whatever, just go over. I mean, but they're just, sorry, Beck, it's just no accountability or anything with these players. They're just going through the motions. They're just like gutless wonders. It's unbelievable. And I do blame, and the book goes all the way up with what's happening. But top players and top teams take responsibility for their actions.
Yes,
and Spurs are not a top team at the minute, and they take no responsibility, or very few of them do.
Agreed.
And that is a massive issue. Massive.
Not trying to provide an excuse. I'm just trying to explain.
Yeah, I get you, mate.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Becky, agree?
Yeah. I don't think every single one does that, but yeah, I think as a collective they do.
And I'll be honest, I've never been a fan of a goalkeeper as your captain, and even when the armband moves to Kane, what a treasure he is, but as far as a get in your face, grab the players by the back of the neck and drag them up the pitch, that's not him.
He leads by example.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
he's very good with the ref. I always think. I think Kane's really good with the ref. He's always in the ref's face. He kind of, without like in a fin.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm talking about with his teammates.
I think
Well,
he's done well since he's been captain.
Brentford's goalie is their captain because my Jack noticed that.
Yeah, Ray. I think he stepped since he's been captain. I think he's stepped up. I think he's been brilliant all season, but I feel like he has stepped up. I think he's just getting let down by individuals around him. But I think he has done that. But he is more of a leader by example, I think, rather than, like when I talk, like even like a Jordan Henderson. Then I think he's not that type of captain, is he? Great,
Interesting.
brilliant player. Just before we move up, like the goal, and I've said it before, never take that bloke for granted. Just absolute quality. How many goals he got this season? Was that his 30th goal? Just
28. League goals 28. Yeah.
Hasn't he got something like 47% of our goals this season? I'm sure I saw that on Sky yesterday.
A crazy amount.
Yeah, if you add his assists and he's involvement of over half the goals. I mean, if you kind of think about it, I mean, I don't want to get on trend, but if I had told you at the beginning of the season that Kane would have 28, Pierre would have 5 goals, 4 assists, Bentancur would have 5 goals, 2 assists, Perisic would have 1 goal, 8 assists, where would you think we'd finish?
You put that in the group chat, didn't you, Jack? I think.
I did. Yeah, and I saved it for that reason.
Yeah, and that is a great line. In fact, I'm opening it up to people in the comments as well. Just say that again.
So beginning of the season, we haven't played a game, and I tell you, I'll give you these stats that will happen. Kane with 28 goals, Pierre will have 5 goals, 4 assists, Bentancur will have 5 goals, 2 assists, Perisic will have 1 goal and 8 assists in 23 starts. Where would you think we'd finish? And if
Sonny's got 10, hasn't he? Hasn't Sonny got 10?
Sonny has 10. I left him out. But yeah, you could say, and Sonny will have 10. Where do you think we finish? And every single person that you could have asked would have said, mate,
not 8.
Top four is a lock.
Yeah.
Yeah. But someone put in the chat though. Someone put in the comments, we've conceded 62 goals. And I think someone's telling me on Saturday that we've conceded 60 and scored 60 or something. That might not be right. Forgive me.
Yeah.
And we beat our own record. We were the last team. We were the last team to do it, and we beat our own record. Great, brilliant. Yeah.
And Stephen Parker's got a comment. It says we'd be on 33 points without him. Actually, I don't know if he's done the math, but that is the run we're on since Conte left. After the Southampton game, if we go across a whole season with the number of points we've actually gotten, it's 33 points. And that's with the gift of the Brighton game.
And this is another point, mate, because we were going nowhere under Conte. But it's like I've heard said before, if you give footballers an excuse, they will use it. And they've got excuses because there's no manager, no director of football, which is a shit show. But you give them excuses and they will use it. And they've let their standards slip. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Someone said to me yesterday as well and I was genuinely racking my brains, couldn't remember a game this season, and that we have played well in both halves. Even in the Man City game, we played quite well first half. We were hanging on second half. Played well second half at home to Leicester, second half to Leeds. If you go through games, couldn't we? There probably isn't a game where we played fantastic for over 60 minutes. And that's ridiculous.
It's very few. Yeah.
I mean, what is clear, I just put out the comment from Peter, conceding 5 more goals than Everton this season. I mean, that just sums up how bad it's been defensively for us. But you would never, Gibbo, we would never have predicted that at the beginning of the season, a Conte team being that bad defensively, would we? I mean, and that's where, going back to your point, Jack, about your stats, if you put them stats, the assumption we all would have made, I think would have been defensively we will be solid, or certainly more solid than we have been, a lot more solid than we have been.
Yeah, I don't know how it's come about, but I mean, some of those defenders have made mistakes under previous managers, haven't they? And they're not very good, but they've been under that. They seem to be not so at the moment, but a lot of the season they seem to have been under that. We allow them to be under that much pressure. Do you know what? That they can't hold on to it, and I can't understand how they've got as bad as they have. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, but a lot of it's individual mistakes, isn't it? But I think now it's at the point where they're just like championship. that defence looks like a championship defence. It's like just the individual errors, not picking up men. Like, I mean, Davis got beat that second goal, but that's just sheer pace. And so, like, you've got Langley with him, another guy who's got no pace.
No pace.
So we try to play. If we try to play high up the pitch, you're struggling. If somebody pass it through you because you've got no pace. So there's just no cohesion or anything about it at the minute, is there? Whether we play a 3 or a 4, we just can't. We can't defend. And I don't know if that's also we can't defend as a team. Whether we don't, we're easy. People play around our. I want to say press, but we don't really have a press. So our efforts at pressing, other teams just pass round, and then we're sort of on the back foot. So yeah, whether it's defending as a team, from the front or whatever, it's just defensively we're atrocious, aren't we?
Because I remember seeing a tweet saying we've basically played with like a back 7 all season because we've had 2 defensive midfielders as well, and they've still conceded. I'm just reading Stevie's comment about the women. Yep. It's such a shame more people didn't stay for the women's game. We stayed for the women's game, and I had to drag Maisie and Joe to stay because they didn't want to stay. They were really good. I really enjoyed the women's game. There was like a really good press and a really good left winger. Beth England scored. But because of the hoo-ha at the end of the game, I reckon when they played against United about 3 weeks ago, where it wasn't involved straight after the men, there's probably more people at that game in Homan than there was on Saturday after a Premier League game. It just was not very well attended at all. It was such a shame because they played with real fight. They knew they were playing for their lives, and they did, and they won, they stayed up, and it was brilliant. But yeah, there was like nobody watching it.
Now, Becky, I want to ask you, I heard that, as soon as the ref blew the final whistle, the music came on to a concert level and played at such a high level to drown out the expected boos and the hostility that a lot of people were driven. Like, it was so loud, people were leaving because I don't know if that's true.
So they score the third goal, a fair amount go then. So and I noticed they put it on Match Today, didn't they, showing people going up the stairs. But again, maybe, let's give people benefit of doubt, maybe because there is the lack of appreciation, and the women's game, maybe they're going to the toilet, getting a pint, getting some food, type of thing. They don't know, as we know, it's so massive underneath Tottenham. It doesn't necessarily mean they've left the ground. Anyway, quite a lot of people go at 87 minutes. We then have 9 minutes of injury time to endure as well, which is like, please put us out of our misery. And that's when Sonny did that curler and Richarlison kind of hit the stanchion, and they had a couple of chances right at the end. And then literally as the game finished, so me and Jack always have this conversation when we hear Glory, Glory, Tottenham Hotspur in the car on the way down. We're always like, I hope we hear this at the end of the game, because that's what always gets played when we win. They played something else, but they literally boomed it massive. There were boos, but we've had boos before this season, but it was really loud. The thing for me, it was loud and it was stupidly loud, and it meant you couldn't talk to anybody. Because a lot of people, remember, were like saying goodbye and like, see you in August type of thing as well. But it was really loud. It was stupidly loud. But when they came out for the lack of appreciation, there was also boos then. And then they fired the noise up again to kind of stop that. So those people that were clapping, some that were coming out, and when Son came out to get his award for goal of the season against Brighton, and when Kane came out to get his player of the season awards, the sound of the music was so loud you couldn't hear Sonny songs and you couldn't hear Kane songs. For those people who did want to show their appreciation, you couldn't hear that side of it because it was just to avoid the boos.
Yeah.
Didn't they boo the highlights reel? Didn't they put a season highlight reel on the big screen and they booed that back?
Yeah. In fact,
they've just preempted that, haven't they? That's pre-planned.
Yeah, and I want to throw something in because I would say Ali Gold absolutely just roasted the club over this post game thing, and he pointed out, he's like, they were so desperate to not make it a Kane highlight show, they actually had a block by Tanganga in the 4-1 loss to Leicester in the highlights. The season-ending highlights included a block from Tanganga. If that doesn't tell you that the people inside the club have no flipping idea what they're doing, I don't know. No offense to Tanganga. I have nothing against the player, but come on,
mate. The tone was set by the fact that we brought Lucas on when we needed to win, so the fans could see him off.
All right, okay. Here's the next half hour.
That is a tone setter, mate. Sorry, pal, but
before we get
carry on. I'll let you get on.
Before we get there, Gibbo, this is really I'll be honest. I left it when we considered the third goal. I left, and ordinarily, every last game of the season, I always stay for the
They were booing
appreciation
you.
lap. Mate, I can tell you now, it was like it was full time. It was that busy walking out of the stadium and going back down towards the high road. It was like we was leaving at full time. Honestly, I can't believe there was that many people in the stadium after they considered the third, because it was rammed. It really was busy. But the point, I always normally stay for appreciation, but my take on it then was, what are we staying for? There's nothing to stay for. There was no celebration. I think the women's game, if we would have won that game and it would have been a bit more cheerful and the mood would have been a little bit better, I think you would have seen more people stay. I probably would have stayed for the women's game, if I was being honest. If I was so frustrated and despondent because of what we saw yet again in terms of the performance, I just thought, that's it, I'm done.
The lack of appreciation thing is a tricky one, because I've had this conversation yesterday. So people are like, oh, they should have done one, and I remember tweeting the day that they announced that the women's game was straight after, and I was very careful to not put lack of honour. So I put something like, when will they do the walk round thing? And people were like, oh, there shouldn't be one. And then I was like, I've got kids like that sort of thing. Kids like to see them wave, so I get it's who you're with and that sort of thing. But, Jack really wanted to see them off. And to be fair, those that did stay for it, it was a little bit like, we need to say goodbye to Kane, if that's what ends up being. The problem is if the players don't do it and they don't come out, then they get hammered as well, because they're just overpaid idiots who don't come out and appreciate the fans. So they can't win either way. Like obviously I'd already knew that Sonny had got goal of the season, and we actually knew the people who gave him the award. It was Sverker from Swedish Spurs. So we also wanted to see that. But poor Sonny, he was looking at the ground. He just walked up looking to, those of you who've seen it on Twitter, he just looks really sad. It's still a really good thing for him. He got his 100th goal, but yeah, it was like none of them are allowed to smile. How dare you smile, because that you don't deserve it. So it was an odd thing to do. Bearing in mind, those of you that remember it last year, it was in a pouring down rain last year, and all the players and all the families came out and they walked around for about half an hour, 40 minutes in pouring rain. Yeah, it was quick. It was over. Kulusevski was the one that I noticed. He didn't really come around the edge. He stayed in the middle. Romero had his little boy. Kane went first with his family. And to be fair to Kate, she was very smiley. She was waving, a lot of people smiling, waving. It didn't look like a sad wave. And then there was a melee of players. Sonny was sort of towards the end, and then Mora was the last one. And yeah, he pretty much started crying as soon as the final whistle went. But then Richarlison didn't really come very close. It was very strange. It was a strange lack of appreciation. But like I said, if they don't do it, you get hammered for not doing it either. So.
I've been at the last game of the season. I bet you were there, Craig. Probably you, Becky. I think we lost 4-1 or 4-0 to Blackburn, and people started throwing their season tickets on the pitch. Yeah, but it was when the season ticket was in
paper.
A book.
Yeah, the plastic wallet. The plastic
They're
wallet
just
thing.
just like loads of books going on to the. I think we got spanked in that game, last game of the season. But yeah, it must be tough for them to come out in that. But like the whole thing for me, like if you like, I know they've done that double header, but if you're having a cracking season, that type of thing goes off like a house on fire.
Yeah.
But that they do that. You surely someone's there thinking, if we don't do well in this game, this is going to turn out to be an embarrassment. Do you think anybody's sat there and done that, or do you think they're all going, yeah, good idea, mate. Yeah, really good idea. Let's do that. And then, but someone's just thinking, oh my god, if this result's bad, this is gonna turn to shit.
But they're not the first team to ever come out and do a laugh of appreciation after losing a game.
I mean like having the women's game and everything on as well, Beck. Like at that on that exact day with how things are going at the club, like they wanted a lot of people to go and watch the women.
Yeah, that's the point I made a minute ago. When they've had games this season without having the men in front, and it's had more people there.
Yeah,
so it's
just like it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, no, agreed. It was all a bit of a shambles. Going back to Moira, then.
Here we go.
What we'll start with you, Gibbo.
Richarlison's that uncle that swings the kids around. You've all got little ones, haven't you? You're playing the garden.
It used to be Sonny.
Like a helicopter. Yeah, it used to be Sonny. I said that. Richarlison does it now. So he was getting all the Morris kids while he was crying with his wife, and he was like
He's got
swinging
more
his
energy.
kids around.
Yeah,
He's got more energy. Never plays.
Moira's last home game, he was on the bench. I said going in, it's inevitable Sentiment FC that we're going to bring him on. Sure enough, Gibbo, we brought him on. Initial reaction to that?
Bring the bloke on with a minute to go. Like Richarlison's on the bench. That for me just smacks of. There's no way. When the season he's had and like the positive impact he's had on any games for a while now. And with the fans as well, even knowing like you could have bought more on in the last minute. There's no, that for me, like the minute that happened, I'm like that sums everything. That sums everything up at the minute that's going on.
And don't we concede before he's even touched it? I think as well. I remember saying that to Jack.
But
didn't
that's
like Wolves when we made changes at Wolves. Took Kulusevski off, took Porro off, and then Wolves scored. It's
just the whole thing around bringing him on at that point in the game. It's just a token gesture. Why are we, when we need the points, which we do, because, no matter what people say, you want to finish as high as you can. European football, you finish where you finish in the league. So people who say you don't deserve, we don't want to play in the Conference League, it's below us. Well, no, it's not, mate, because that's the position we finished in the league that denotes that we play in the Conference League because of how we've played. But it just smacks of like nothing matters. Sentimentality, nonsense, like where we never get rid of players. Like Mora, we could have got rid of him 2 years ago for money, but we never. We decided to keep him. He's had little to no impact in that time, and now we're giving him away for free. The whole thing just is like what is wrong with Spurs, like the culture of the squad and everything, bringing him on. I mean, they could tell you something different, the coaching staff, but I looked at that. Surely Richarlison has a better impact than him. Get the crowd, even if he gets the crowd up and he gets about, I know he came on later, but the crowd are desperate for him to score a goal in the league at home and stuff like that, and he puts himself about a bit. The whole thing, mate, just smacked us sentimentality and what is a big part of what is wrong with Spurs. It's just, mate, it just made my piss boil watching that. Do you know when I'm just like chuntering to myself, what are we doing? So someone else can go now.
Yeah, Becky, what did you make to it?
I expected it to happen. Like you said earlier, the game was over really at 2-1, let alone 3-1. I've been so many games this season where we just don't look like coming back from it. So it was like, an inevitability really that he was going to come on. I kind of half expected Lloris to appear at some point as well. I know he wasn't on the bench, but when I saw the lineups, I thought they'd have just bunged him on the end as well to kind of let him come on. I was just reading Dave's comment about Højbjerg's cardigan. Those of you that saw it was a bit like Sonny's Burberry brown horror thing that he was wearing before the Leeds game. Yeah, it was a strange cardigan. And Lloris was wearing like a black leather jacket, looked like Tom Cruise without sunglasses.
Yeah, he's French, though, isn't he? He rocks it. Jack, what do you make to this view of sentiments in football, particularly at top-level sports and like Tottenham in the Premier League?
But Liverpool did it with Firmino, and it worked. He scored. We just don't have
because he's
better.
He's better.
That's the point I'm making.
He's a good player.
I mean, it's. I don't have any grand comments or any insight into sentimentality in football. I can speak to this issue though, and that's just summed up in one word, Gibbo. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. The only reason that he should be coming on is you're up 3-1 in the 92nd, and you're saying, you're going to let him get the crowd to give him applause or something like that. That's the only time. Because I agree, there's no way a manager worth their salt is going to look at him and say, "You're my game changer" at this point.
They could be 3-1 down in the 95th minute, mate. Bring him on then.
Yeah, okay. Either way, 3-1 down, 3-1 up, whatever. But when I saw him come on, what was it? The 65th 5th or something. It's not. I mean,
We ain't made
I
a
just-
sub that early for 5 years.
it's that's not entirely true, but
Yeah, I know,
Mason's
I know.
been making a few early says, but that's an appalling decision. I don't even know how you. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's just so appalling.
Yeah. Can anyone remember the last time they can remember a sentimental substitution last home game of the season for any Tottenham players? I can tell you what I remember. Why you
Go on,
think?
then.
So the one
Throw
that
it
comes
out
to
there.
my mind is 1998 Southampton at home 1-1 and Gary Abbott's last game. And Sol Campbell was captain, and then obviously Gary Abbott came on for about 5 minutes at the end, and he gave him the armband back. That's the last time I saw that, and he was atrocious when he came on as well.
Who, Mabsy? How
He
old was
just
he then?
passed it. I don't know, but 80. He was old.
Yeah. There's
But,
no. Unfortunately, at the top, there's no room for sentimentality, is there? You got to be ruthless, but we're not at the top, so I suppose we can afford to be. Yeah,
Davo remembers it well.
but I think it was King Hoddle said in here, the same sort of sentimentality as people wanting to keep Dyer and Davis, though. I don't think there's that. To be fair, mate, I don't think there's that many wanting to keep Dyer. I think that's a club thing, but yeah, more a ridiculous decision, but it's gone now, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do we make of the rumours that Richarlison's going to Real Madrid?
Good move for him. They reckon.
Good move for him.
It is. They reckon Ancelotti. Obviously, Ancelotti had him, mate. If somebody come in with 70 million for him, you say, or how much did we pay for him?
60.
We don't. 60. I was going to say we don't make profit. When was the last time we made a profit on a player?
But if you get offered a profit on him to Real Madrid, fair play to him. Good move for him. Take the money and go and get someone that.
When I saw that
facilitate
this
what we need
morning,
more.
I thought the only good thing about that is if that actually does happen, Kane's not leaving because Richarlison was supposed to come in as a Kane replacement. So if Richarlison leaves, at least we've got Kane for one more season.
So
Jack,
There's
spit it out.
Sorry.
I don't want to talk about. There's just there's no world in which that makes sense. I didn't hear about that rumor. That
I
is
agree.
complete bollocks. That is no way, no how is Real Madrid
If you
coming for Richarlison.
believe it, Ancelotti is specifically asked to have him return to him. So, you're like, really?
I mean, I'm not slamming. But Richarlison had a very poor year, and he's a better player than what he showed. But he's not. Sorry, he's not going there.
Richarlison was bought in because he they could get him on a good deal from Everton because they needed the money.
Yeah.
Never ever looked like it, but never fit to replace Kane up top.
Well, it's
very sparingly maybe, and like playing across the other parts. I mean, if you could get the same money for him, you could get rid of him and get a player in who could facilitate those roles better than him for that money. There's better options out there than him. Like, he's done all right, he's worked, but if you can get your money back for him, so.
Yeah, I mean, Richarlison would do well just because it's like Brazil. He'd have quality players all around him everywhere, but still, there's just no. I mean, Benzema is obviously on his way out, but there's just no way that's their next best option. I don't believe that for a second.
If Ancelotti wants him, then we shouldn't stand in his way.
No,
I'm sure we'll do a show at the end of the season where we'll go through the squad and then analyze the squad in terms of keep, sell, buy, etc. What I would say on Richarlison is we haven't played him in the position to get the best out of him at all this season. He's had an injury various season as well, which hasn't helped. So I think my personal take on it is perhaps we've invited him off too soon. Maybe, maybe we need to see what happens next season.
I agree. You spend a bunch of money on him, you give him a chance.
I think because he's tweeted about Vinny Jr., hasn't he, as well? So people have put 2 and 2 together and made 12 as well.
Yeah, quite. Well, we'll look forward to that show when we talk about that.
Do you know what got the biggest cheer on Saturday about 5:30?
Go on.
The Forest goal. We were walking down the high road and you could hear it in like you said, a lot of people left the game early, thought I was going to pub, see everyone off, not going to see until August. And then we were literally walking down to get some food and it was like a roar from both sides.
The thing I noticed about my standout moment leaving the ground on Saturday was the Munster trucks that was happening outside the South Stand. Did you see that, Becky?
Yeah.
The Munster,
that was loud too. Yeah.
Honestly, I was like walking past, going, "What the hell is this all about?" And then I realised there's Munster trucks flying through. I mean, talk about Levy Masterstroke. That would wind up some of the Levy out people. Just on the Levy out stuff before we move on to future again. Obviously, if we don't mention it, we'll be accused of being in the hand of Tottenham's pocket again and getting paid all sorts. But Levy out balloons, first time I've seen Levy out black balloons. All about
On
5
the
of them
pitch.
make it onto the pitch. Yeah.
Mhm.
And also just to note, I walked past the protest probably about an hour before kickoff. I was late getting into the ground, and I would say it's probably the biggest protest I've seen so far. I'd say maybe just shy of 100 or so people outside the ground. And in the ground, in addition to the balloons, I think it's the first time I can say, Becky, that I've actually had chanting, clear chanting coming out of the North Stand as well as the South Stand for Levy out. What's that look like from those watching it at home, Jack? Gibbo, loud and clear.
Go on, Jack.
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't say loud and clear. I mean you can hear it. But the balloons are obvious, and you got some good camera shots of that. And I think somebody got a banner in.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. And that was on Match Today as well, the banner.
Yeah, so yeah, it's clear. I mean, there's no question, rightly so. The visibility of the Levy out folks is rising because I mean, I've gone from a fairly balanced and even somewhat defending of the organization to this season saying that you've just made so many appalling decisions. I don't understand how you can't hold yourself responsible for what's happened on the pitch because even if you don't think it's your fault, you're in charge. So yeah, no, it's been very clear. I don't listen to the game that loudly, but even in the volume I'm listening to, you can clearly pick up the chants. I mean, there's no question about that.
A few people had scarves as well. I saw about 3 of those at Villa, but because we walk past, we walk from Northumberland Park to meet people and then back to Southend. So we saw the protest. People were wearing scarves. The scarves. I know people say, "Oh, it's like the Norwich scarves at United," but it has an impact. You see the scarves and you think, "Yeah, that person is making a statement without getting cross or having to go at anybody else."
Mm-hmm.
So if that grows as well, the black balloons, yeah, fine, but the scarves, I think that will.
I did see someone with the Harry Potter scarf, as I call it, because that's what it just reminds me of Harry Potter.
Hufflepuff.
Yeah, Hufflepuff buying a drink at the bar in the goal line bar on Saturday. I thought it was quite ironic.
They're starting to put that. They put that obviously fair. They put their money where their mouth is, and they've kept going, and it's been building, and fair play to them if that's what they want to do. Then they keep going, and I think the one thing I have noticed a little bit more on the socials is, I think they've obviously discussed it between you're not getting those people anymore, or not as many, sort of like having a go at someone else, like you're part of the problem, or you're this, or you're this, or you're that. I think they're just getting on with it, aren't they? Look, if you want to join in, this is what we want to do, and we'll do it regardless. If you don't,
there are still a lot of people who do say that, particularly on Twitter. And
maybe just the people I follow. You've probably got a lot. You probably follow a lot more and have a lot more followers than me.
The people that you meet in real life, the people that you meet in real life are much more kind of, and often a lot of those go to away games as well, so they are more sort of conservative, for want of a better phrase. But yeah,
I do think there's two types of people. There's those that don't go to games and are very vocal on social media about it versus those that go to the games. And I think you do get a difference.
Yeah.
Balanced, not balanced view. That's not they're very clear where they sit, but the way they approach it's a bit more
sensible.
At this minute, I don't really go. I don't go to a lot of games. I just can't at the minute with stuff that I have on at home. So I don't really get involved in. I don't really want to get involved in, even if I disagree with what someone says on Twitter. Because I just don't. I don't go. I don't feel like I have the right to put my opinion across strongly either way because I don't go. But they're working at what they're doing. There's change for. I mean, was there anything like with the change for Tottenham people? Were they there any?
No,
Can you do you get them at the ground? Do you see it?
No, they released. I mean, yeah, we've asked CFS Change for Tottenham to come on this pod now several times to talk about their mission, because I actually, for me, I actually think they're the one group that could potentially get some traction because they are quite balanced in the way that they're trying to go about it. I think the problem is they don't have a figurehead. They're not clearly articulating, what they're about. And despite us in the olive branch of saying come on the show, for some reason they just don't want to. I don't quite understand that, and I think they've turned down appearances on other shows as well. And so they could do something. The opportunity's there, but for some reason they're just not.
Yeah, I mean,
take it.
Leadership requires leaders. I mean, it's kind of a prerequisite. Our club at the top lacks leadership because it doesn't have a leader that's out front setting the direction of the club and executing a plan, right? And you could and I feel the same thing about the coalition of people wanting Levy and Enoch out, which again, I don't get too excited about. One, I'm here in the States. Two, it's not going to happen unless somebody comes up with $4 billion plus. But the fact is the movement doesn't have, you're spot on. They don't have a focal point. There's not a leader that's visible who's reasonable and speaks well, writes well, whatever. And again, as I always said, leadership requires leaders, and they just don't have it yet. But if they do, then they might get some traction. I agree.
Yeah, they do, and there's opportunities. There's snap. I think for Change for Tottenham, I really believe they're the one group that could do it. But when they have opportunities to do something, I think they've perhaps taken the wrong line, or a few times I've called them out on social media before. I know that Dave, who's listening, called them out on Twitter before for some things that they've said. But they do need to be more visible. I think what they did is they released a load of posters. I don't know if you saw any in the South Stand, Becky. They were basically leaving out posters with the Change for Tottenham logo. I don't know if you saw any printed or not. But
the thing is about their wish, like people are putting in the comments, it's a bit wishy-washy because it says protest or don't protest, do this or don't do this, but they don't sort of say what they're doing, and then people struggle to get on board with what they're, to be fair to the people that stand outside the club shop, they're like, we're at the club shop at this time, we're going to do this, and when they sort of say you can do that and you can do that, it's like, well, which are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I still think the thing for me is, someone put it on Twitter. I think it's Spooky, the creator. He does one of the other pods. He put a really interesting thread out, and he makes some really good points. It's okay saying to fans, don't spend any money in the club shop, don't spend any money on a sausage roll or beer, or whatever, in the stadium, etc., etc. But how do you tell that to your excited son or daughter who you're taking to the game for the first time, and they want a shirt at the club shop or they want a scarf, etc.? You can't. You're going to do it. I think, ultimately, for me, if people really want to make a difference, really want to be heard, really want to influence the club, get involved in the trust, because as it stands, they are still the single most recognised body in terms of having a direct line into the board through the ways they do, and they're the ones that ultimately have that dialogue. And until the fan rep board comes in, which will be soon, then that's the only way. Join the trust and be an active member of the trust. Don't just join and be silent, be active. That's my take. I'll probably get Kane for it on Twitter, but
Nah.
Okay, so moving on then. This week, we've had the news. This is the week in Spurs. Naglesman is still in the running for the job. He wasn't, but now he may be again, depending on who we appoint as a director of football, and it's someone that Naglesman really believes in. And then it developed to Slot. Looks like he is going to be coming to Spurs. Obviously, the rumours have really strengthened in over the last week. It's come out today that his representative is going to be talking to the final to say we want to come out the contract, we want to speak to Tottenham. In his press conference for the game last week, he didn't rule out categorically coming to Spurs. In fact, he actually said, I think it was to ESPN, that Premier League will probably be his next challenge if he went anywhere. What do we make of that, Gibbo? Is he coming?
Mate, firstly, obviously, Naglesman, they said nothing has happened with that. But I see, like, on Twitter and stuff like that, like, obviously they said Naglesman wanted to come in. Tottenham stayed away from it because he was demanding, well, saying, I want so-and-so to be director of football. And then people are like, oh, fucking Spurs. That's why they don't want winners to come here. Well, you can't have somebody come in, or before they've even come in, and start demanding that who they have come to work at the club and who they want. Even Pep didn't do that. Pep came in, won a little bit, and every year he strengthens his position. He gets his own way a bit more. You can't have that as a club. You just can't have that. But it's not happening anyway. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know why. But Slot, mate, he's the favourite now. I think when everything you read, mate, I think the minute Feyenoord, when they have this meeting, he says he wants to leave. They agree a compensation package. It'll be done, won't it? But they've got a game on Sunday, so it's not going to be done until after that game. But it's pretty much, it pretty much looks like it's very heavily on. But mate, whatever happens when he comes in, he's a progressive. He plays progressive football. Like I've seen in the comments here, whatever happens now, if we get a progressive football coach, we're going to need time and patience, because some of these players have been coached for far too long not to play that way. We're going to have to completely change how we play. The culture will have to change, and that is what he did at Feyenoord. So, it's I don't know what to say. I'm not going to be negative about it. I want it to work. I'm excited for change. I'm desperate for us to start playing a better brand of football and get a coach in who's sort of like happy to be at Spurs and wants to improve his stock and the team at the same time. So I'm looking forward to it. And if this is the guy, then I'll get behind him, and hopefully he can, his remit's going to be, what's his remit going to be? Where are we going to finish? 8th or 9th? So next season, it's no good saying you've got to finish Champions League. We've got to be looking at, because we'll probably miss out on European football. So his target's got to be to bring European football back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and have a push for a trophy. So fingers crossed, mate, he can come in and do that. That Emery at Villa has shown that it's not a massive job to turn teams around. He just needs the players to be in the right mind space to want to do it, to buy into what the coach is doing. And obviously the fans have got to play their part, and we've got to understand that it's going to take a little bit of time and patience if we want to see progressive football on the pitch again.
Becky, does Slot get your patience, and do you give him the time?
I'm just kind of reading the comments there. Paul saying there about Mourinho and Conte couldn't do it. Why would Slot? The trouble is we don't know, do we? We don't know what will work. You just said then if say we're not in Europe, the plan would be to get back into Europe and to do well in the cup. But the board don't really push for us to do well in cups. They don't really see it as a priority. So is he allowed to go and say that that's what he wants to do against what they've just said? We've talked a few times on here. We don't know about how much influence the board has. It might even have been the board who said get more on for a few minutes and you can sell some more shirts. You just don't know how much they say this has to happen and whether he's allowed to go against that. I don't know. I think for me, he's coming because Van der Vaart said, didn't he, that he'd spoken with the club or something and he recommended them or something like that. And the fact that he's put that out makes me think that it's almost a done deal now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. No managers get time, even when they're half decent. They don't. I think there's been lots said about West Ham this season. They had a full stadium for their lack of appreciation yesterday. They've had one of their worst seasons in the league because they're in a final. There's a feel-good factor, and they gave Moyes a lot of time. Moyes could be one of those managers that wasn't kept on, and there needs to be a kind of trust that they will keep seeing things through, because he didn't have that at United. When it didn't work at United, he was sacked straight away. Didn't matter what he'd done at Everton. So more often than not, managers don't get time. It's a results thing, isn't it? The results have to be there on the pitch. And
I mean, when Jack, when Poch first came in, I mean, he nearly got sacked. So, he didn't have a great start to life at Tottenham, but he was, he really rebuilt the club, didn't he, culturally from the ground up. This is really, isn't it, what we're talking about now? We need with Slot to rebuild the club culturally, to get everything right, get the foundations in right, and start again. Is Slot the right man to do that?
Well, my next minute of Dutch league football will be my first minute of Dutch league football watching. I have a pretty full life. I've got a local club, men's and women's teams I'm very active in. I've got a local ice hockey team that's in the semifinals of the playoffs here in the NHL. I got Spurs. I got business to run. I got all sorts of stuff. And Dutch football just doesn't quite make the cut. So if they're not in the Champions League, I probably haven't seen them play. So for that, I will say that Slot is the profile of the type of manager that I've said for months we should be pursuing. Someone who is not hoping that his next job is going to be a better job than the Tottenham job. A coach who wants to be here, who has some history of turning clubs around. He did at AZ. He did at Feyenoord. He's got a history of, again, lower level football, I recognize, but Ajax had probably their worst point total, and I can't remember how long. So it might have been a little bit low bar, but I would say that he's definitely the profile. I think somebody made the comment that says 2 or 3 years to turn this around. That's not true. I don't think. I mean, you would mention it, Gibbo. I mean, 12 months ago, this same squad was very difficult to score against. I mean, we were rocking and rolling. We had defenders who looked like, they were going to get into their national team squads and play well and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we looked great defensively. We had great structure. And 12 months later, we're on one of the worst defensive records in modern Premier League history. I mean, it's just 12 months. I mean, it's unbelievable the turnaround, how fast they've fallen off. It doesn't mean you can't turn around just as fast the way Emery did. And I hope he is given time, and time has to come from a chairman with backbone who says, I've made the right appointment. I'm going to give this guy time. I'm not going to let the fans and the media, take this guy out. I'm going to give him the support and resources. And obviously, I'm describing someone that may not be at the club as chairman. I recognize that. But that's what's required, because I'll tell you right now, I hate to say it, but they stuck with Arteta, and it didn't look good for the first 18 months. And I still think that maybe had he not won that FA Cup, he might not have survived, but he did, right? And it gave him the time with the fans, and it gave him the time with the players, and they gave him the backing to get out the players that weren't part of the program, and look what happened. So it can be done, and their payroll is less than ours right now. So it is not an impossible task with leadership. But
yeah, it's blatantly obvious, Jack. We've got some players who we've got to move on. We've got to bring players in, which is I know isn't as straightforward as it sounds, and that's obvious. We got to do that. But we're at a point where the whole culture needs changing. I think it has come to that point where a line in the sand has to be drawn. And where we're at now, the board have let it go on for too long. But a line in this, nothing's going to, in the last week or so, nothing will happen now until the end of the season, because coaches are still in jobs and they'll stay where they are now. And even directors of football that we're probably looking at. There's a line in the sand that's drawn after that Leeds game. You can't just give up. Like people say, it doesn't matter what coach comes in. It doesn't. What do you do then? Do you just get, nothing will change with Levy? Well, something's got to change. The penny's got to drop. He's got, all you can do as a football fan is hope. Like you said, the season's been rubbish, and we need to check. Things need to change. Or I've made. You said the other week, I've made mistakes, which it's all words. It is just words at the moment. But you've got to believe and hope as a fan. That's what it's all about. That it will change. And it can be turned around. Like we said, these coaches do, but what is going to have to happen at Spurs is some serious coaching. That will make this team better. Better players will make this team better, obviously, in the right areas. But, we can't, I'm not going to sort of like give up. I'm going to look forward to it. It's change. I want to see better football. That's going to be part of his remit. And surely there's no way that he's told you need to come in and deliver top 4. They know where we are at the minute. He can hear it in the stands that the fans aren't happy. But it's as if like from after that Leeds game, it's sort of like day dot, isn't it? That's how we've got it. That's how we've sort of got to look at it. That's where we are. Leave is not leaving. We're not going to get bought out in the next month and a new manager comes in so we can just let him spunk a load of money. It's not going to happen. So we sort of just got to hope that like with Munn coming in, we get a decent director of football and we get a new coach who plays progressive football, and that we are allowed to get rid of the old guard, some of the old guard who, and we need a new mentality and culture. We've got to hope that that's what's going to happen. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Like you said, Arteta's done it. De Zerbi only came in this year, didn't he?
Yep.
De Zerbi only came in this year. Emery. It can be done. Things aren't always as bad as you think they are, and they're never as great as you think they are.
Eddie Howe came
somewhere in the middle.
Eddie Howe came in before they spent a bunch of money. They were 19th, I think, when he came in at first. They didn't hire a director of football first. They brought in a manager who instilled a new system and confidence in the players, and they started moving up the table. Then they got to a transfer window. They spent some money. Then they got to a transfer window, spent some more money, and now they're going to go to the Champions League. And so next year, I mean, I would be okay. We could finish 8th next year, and it'd still be a better year than the 8th that we're going to get this year. Because you know what? Villa's not going anywhere. Brighton's probably not going anywhere. Brentford's not going anywhere. And then you got to add to that, Chelsea's going to be coming back. I mean, Liverpool, had a miserable year. I mean, they're going to finish 5th. But you got Newcastle not going anywhere. It's going to be harder just to get into Europe. That Conference League spot is going to be harder to get next year potentially than it was this year. So we could be a lot better and still finish 8th. And I'd be fine with that if, to your point, you're just not just dreading having to watch the club play.
Exactly, mate. That's what it'll be. Get European football back at this club. We've regressed. Get European football back. Get the crowd and fans. Let's get some excitement back in this stadium. Let's start playing football that our fans want to see. And that Tottenham Hotspur, sort of like we've always been a good footballing club. Let's get that back. And let's try and push on for a trophy. That's what they've got to do. And I don't think they think, top 4. I think that of it being the be all and end all. When he said we've tried to do things to make the club successful that haven't worked, I think they realise that now. I think they know where they are, and it's going to be stages to get back there now. Hopefully you can get it and you can get back in there, but it's going to be tough because there's a lot of better teams. So, but it's no good just saying who's going to buy our shit players, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. We're starting a new process, aren't we? And we've got to play our part.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it'll be interesting. I think a lot will depend on what manager we get as to what happens with the players. The conversation about our 5 wing backs, etc. Do we keep our wing backs or do we sell our wing backs? Well, it depends if we get a manager that plays to be at the back. Plays with wing backs, and then that changes everything. If we have Slot, who I think is dominant, is preferred formation is 4 at the back, then suddenly there's some decision that needs to be made on certain players. So, he might be that whoever comes in, Slot might come in and really fancy playing who at left back, who's on loan, Reguilon. Yeah, might really fancy Reguilon. We just don't know, do we? It's going to be interesting.
Backing a manager isn't just giving him a load of money. Backing him a manager is agreeing with what he wants to do. And if that's letting certain players go,
yes,
or, even if it's Romero, if he thinks Romero's not for me, he's a loose cannon. I can't play a high line and risk having him there, chopping people down and getting sent off all the time. I could do with you getting rid of him and I'd want someone else a bit like that. That's backing a manager, not just saying, like they did at Chelsea, have him. Let's get the. That's not backing a manager because Potter probably didn't want 3 or 4 of those players. But we'll see. I don't know what Becky thinks. You'll get whatever happens. You'll get behind them and hope that it all works out, won't you?
Yeah, just listening to all of that, I think, like you just said then, we've got Udoji coming in. We spent all of January buying Porro.
Yeah.
The board are going to remind the person who comes in about all of this. The rumours that Dyers may have already signed a contract. He looked very happy on Saturday with his nieces and nephews and his girlfriend. He was probably the smiliest and waving the most. if a manager comes in and goes, no, because that's what Conte apparently is trying to do, didn't he? And they were like, and there was some resistance to, getting rid of players he didn't want. He tried to send people on loan, and I was so happy on Thursday when Hill assisted Lamella for that header against Seville. Proper cheered. It's not as straightforward as just going, yeah, okay, that's fine, we'll do that, because the board will always think, nah, they've got quite a lot invested in this particular person from a commercial point of view. Romero was one of the people, they had a hoodie, didn't they, in the shop, and it was a photo of him wearing a hoodie and that sort of thing on Thursday, I think it was, they did. So it's not going to be as straightforward as, yes, okay, we trust you, yeah, okay, you can get rid of them. That's the problem. And that's why people are frustrated, because we won't see this kind of massive changing of the guard of players. It takes forever to get rid of any Spurs players. So I don't think everyone's saying, oh, we've got this amazing summer that's going to come, or hopefully we're going to have this massive clear out. We've talked before about how many players we've got coming back from loan. This is why we needed a director of football in ages ago, because I think I saw something yesterday to say that Spurs are already behind in transfers because they don't have a director of football. So they're already behind other clubs that are already in that process. So, and that's not including the players that are coming back. So I don't necessarily think we're going to get this, watershed moment in the summer. It'll probably be even January where we've still got players that we can't get rid of.
Paul O'Keefe seems to think, didn't he, that they're going to rip up some contracts and move a few on.
Really? Okay.
Well, like for me, someone like Winks, how long has Winks got on his
Yeah.
contract? How long has someone like Harry Winks got on his contract? 2 years, a year?
Yeah, I can have a look.
Just, if they're not going to play, just say, look, we'll be messing around trying to get you a loan, free agent. If there's going to be a couple of players like that, isn't there? We.
And to be fair, Doherty did that, didn't he? So we have seen that happen with Doherty.
Yeah, I think, Becky, you make a good point, and I want to take that a little bit further. So, to your point, the board's going to say, "Hey, we just spent X amount on this player. We spent this amount on player to the manager," and that's realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be up to the manager that comes in to have the ability to take what he's got on the squad and make them better. And if he does that, that's when the board needs to demonstrate that they're going to change, to Gibbo's point, and back them by moving people out, even if they've got a lot invested in them. Because if we're going to force managers to keep players just because we spent 40 or 50 or 60 million on them, then we know nothing's changed. It's going to be the same shit all over again. But if they're willing to take some of the sacred cows has been mentioned and move them out because the manager says, nice guy, good player, doesn't work for me, we got to go, and they don't do it, then then you're right. It's going to be the same old Tottenham, same old shit. But that's the change that you're going to see. But he's going to have to earn it. I agree. He's going to have to earn the ability to coach this existing squad into something that doesn't look like the team that we saw in the second half or the first half of any random game.
Won't it?
It could be 15, 20 games next fall.
Hopefully, though, Jack, like if Slot comes in and he starts talking to him about the things he likes to do, and he said, well, I play a back four, and they go, well, we've bought Pedro Porro and Udogie, they're wing backs, so we want you to really sort of play wing backs. Hopefully he'll go, stick your job up your...
Yep, that's exactly right.
If that's what you want to do, then you need to get a coach who plays that system. I don't. This is what I do, and this is how I'm going to implement my style on the Tottenham, on this squad, and I will play with... Do you know what I mean? Or unless he says, yeah, I think I can get him. And if he turns around and says, no, I think I can teach him, I can coach him to play, because that's what coaching is like, teaching them to play maybe slightly different. I think I can use Porro as a wing back, as a right back, and Udogie as a left back, but I can make it work. Then that's down on his toes then. But don't come in and then be like, have to change to suit the players that you've got there. If we want this coach to come in and change the culture and start us off on a new sort of passage of time where we're going to become something in the manager's image, you can't expect him to come in and change everything about what's made him good to get to your club in the first place. We've got to do what made him the guy that we want. Do you know what I mean? We've got to allow him to do that.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to Kyle Walker, though, he was never the strongest defensively, was he? And it goes back to Porro could be an attacking fullback in a four in a team that dominates possession, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with solid centre backs.
Exactly. So, and it all goes back to that, doesn't it? So it's not
And with
writing
absolute
Porro
monsters
off or
in the middle of
Udogie off.
midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Just on Winks, by the way, he's got a year left.
Yeah,
so he'll have 1 year
just
to
pay
say
him
that'll
off.
get him off. Yeah.
Talking of sacred cows, Dave, you keep putting Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in there, mate. We better put Skip in there. But that'll be for another day.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it will come soon. I'm just saying because he's in the comments. Next week, I shall be proved right unless a midfielder apps an absolute barnstormer. I said Højbjerg will play more games than anyone else in midfield, more goals, more assists.
What injury is he supposed to have got?
He just picked up a knock in training, didn't he? Bloke could have done with a rest.
That's what we were
anyway.
told. That's what we were told.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird. There was no sound of that. He didn't even mention it in the pre-season, in the press conference before the game.
Yeah,
didn't mention
he was
it.
all right at the end
Him
of
and
the
Romero
game.
picked him up.
Walking around.
But
speaking of coaching, so you say, I mean, Dean Smith has managed to pull a Jose Mourinho at Newcastle, as many people have mentioned. I just want to mention that because they had 23 shots against and only had one shot from a free kick and pulled out a 0-0, 22% possession. I mean, that's a Jose special right there.
we don't do that, mate, because we're brittle.
Yeah. Newcastle, I think, hit the post 3-4 times, I think, in that game.
Yeah, I think so.
They've got Champions League football now, though, haven't they?
Who goes down, Becky, in the season?
Yeah, that's where we own it.
I think. Just look while you're talking. I just looked at the table. I think possibly Leeds and Leicester. However, I think Leeds will beat us. So that changes things.
Leeds will beat us, but Everton wins at home against Bournemouth and they stay up.
They're all at home, aren't they? Those bottom three are all at home.
But
yeah.
I think aren't Leicester at West Ham?
They're hosting West Ham.
Oh, they're hosting West Ham, are they?
Yeah,
they're all definitely at home. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Leeds wins, but so does Everton, and Leeds goes down, and Leicester's done. I mean, they helped themselves today. Obviously, they're now 18th.
Yeah, but I don't think the draw did much for them today, though. Really.
No, I mean, because if Everton wins, it's over. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's a cup final for Everton at their own ground, isn't it?
Just like last year.
Basically. And Leeds, they've all got to win. But
Yeah.
like you said, Everton have just got. If Everton win, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone else does. I mean, Big Sam.
Is Richarlison going to help Everton by scoring against Leeds?
Well,
nice.
that's a thought.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like for us as well, where are we going to be at? Because I look at that now. I said to Craig before we come on, Brighton have got that Europa League football now. They've never been in Europe. They've secured that Europa League place.
Yep.
They're playing Villa at Villa Park. I know Villa fans, like getting back into Europe, even if it is the Conference League,
That'd be huge.
they'll go in it because they think their manager will try and win it if they're in it. They've not won a trophy for a long time, so they'll take it seriously.
And he could.
And try and win it, and they won't disrespect it or think we're too big for it. So, and you're right, he could. So that game for them will be a massive game. Brighton are sort of like home and dry now. They can be on the beach, and Villa will be bang up for that, so they'll win that. So really, we've got sort of, that's how I see it. So what will the Spurs players be thinking? What have they got to think about? Do they want to get injured before they get on the plane next week to go off to the Bahamas or Mykonos or wherever they're going on holiday? Or will they just continue to go through the motions? And then, like you said, Leeds could beat us. Well, they probably
Here's
will.
my prediction. Here's my prediction. We're going to play one really good half and one really shitty half.
Yeah.
How about that?
Which way
Get
round?
good odds on that.
Which way round will that be?
Doesn't matter.
Noticing that callers in the chat. Caller, did you stay for the women's game or the?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he never.
No,
I saw on Twitter
left,
that he said he was hammered.
Yeah, he left very similar to when I left
goal.
after the third goal. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But I will say this: the highlight about the game on Saturday for me was actually going for a meeting mates and having a drink before the game and everything else. It was really good. good hour underneath the in the stadium with Caller and Stevie, and my brother was there. It's really good. That's why we go to football, though, isn't it? Right? Same as Jack spends his Saturdays and Sundays speaking to his son on the phone, watching the games, and it's what it's all about for me.
Yep.
But it's going to be an interesting end to the season. Very, very quickly, obviously, we'll have a show Friday night and we'll talk more about this in detail. But Jack, I think you've said, do you think that we lose on
2-1.
Saturday, Sunday?
2-1.
2-1. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Becky, you're going to go, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
How do you see it going?
I just think Leeds away is a tough fixture, isn't it? When they're up for it. Now that they're actually still got something to play for, because I think a lot of them thought they would be down by this point. So the fact that they can try, and we are just so bad at the back. It's whether Romero's back, isn't it? When we play it's weird because the defence were not a problem in the first half on Saturday. They didn't have to do anything, and then when they had to do something, they were horrendous. So if Leeds press us, they could score early. They'll get some momentum. Kane will score, but I don't think it will be enough. So yeah, it could be like 3-1 to Leeds. But if it relegates Leicester, I don't mind. It's okay.
Ditto.
Leeds are absolute. They're absolute bobbins, aren't they? Leeds. They're useless. I mean,
they are terrible.
Bamford went off injured for them, which obviously strengthened them. And the guy Rodrigo looked like he was struggling. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't see us winning, which is, it's got to that point where none of even the most sort of like positive spirit, like Becky, doesn't think we'll win. It's just what a shit situation.
It's just so bad away as well.
Yeah,
we are so bad away.
Becky, can you remember when we said the rest of the season we'll probably win our home games and lose away from home, and it's gone that bad that we're not even winning our home games now. No. And we're like, really, our form is like Leeds' form, really, isn't it? It's not far off that. So a draw maybe, because I think Leeds probably, like, if it filters through that Everton are winning or whatever, just resigned to going down. We're resigned to doing nothing. Maybe just a shitty draw, but I can't.
Be very surprised if it was 0-0.
I can't get up to watch it. I couldn't on the weekend. It's just there's no joy in watching Spurs at the minute for me. So just like the minute it's over, it'll be relax. Time to move on. Excited for change, and I don't know, mate. Just get it out the way. That's my prediction. Just get it out the way as painless as possible, please.
Fair enough. Get the season out of the way. Look forward to a cracking pre-season. How quickly are we expecting? Last thing, and then we'll call it a night. How quickly are we expecting an announcement on director of football and manager? Are we thinking a couple of weeks?
The minute the season's finished, that slot thing will be done.
Yeah, I reckon.
They're playing Sunday, aren't they, Feyenoord? So I think it'll all be agreed in principle, and he'll leave after the game officially. But I think that one will be. I actually think that they'll have them in. I think they'll have it in reasonably quick. They've got to, haven't they?
Yeah, they need to do something quickly. There's too much to sort out this club, isn't there?
Yeah,
across the board. So it needs to be
absolutely.
quickly.
Yeah,
it's awfully optimistic from people who should know better.
But I think the manager. I think it's pretty. I think the manager thing. I think that was Slot. I think literally, if you read between the lines, it's a case of talking Feyenoord now. What's the compensation? What's the compensation of backroom staff? I think that's the point they're at. There's too much noise for it to not be relatively far down the road. There's too much sort of like talk about it. The only way I can see it not working now is if Levy fucks it up, which definitely won't happen. So,
really? Is that a smirk?
Yeah.
And Paul, just to answer your question, Paul Walter, if Aston Villa wins, it doesn't matter what we do. We're eighth. So Aston Villa has to draw or lose, and we have to win to get the ECL spot. And I'll tell you that. Did you see where they're playing? Where West Ham's playing this over in Prague. They're playing in a
Oh,
stadium doesn't hold 20,000 people. It's an academy stadium. What the hell is that? The
They,
West Ham fan.
they said over commentary, I think that each side's been given 5,000 tickets.
Oh, I heard 3,000. Is it as many as 5? That's nice. That's half the stadium. There's only 19,000 seats in this place. What the hell? Anyway, sorry. I digress.
Why would he not want to come to Spurs? Why would he not want to come to Spurs?
Yeah.
All right then, guys. Well, I think that's a natural place to leave it for this week. It's been another great chat after a depressing week of Tottenham. But as we said at the top of the show, it's we're one week closer. Becky, enjoy that. Good for you this week.
Yes. So thank you very much for having me. It's nice chat. It flew by as well, really quick. Yeah, I'll be at
Yeah, it has been a good hour and a half.
Hoping next Monday I'll still have a hangover on the show. It would have been a good Sunday because I never drink at the games and I get in the train.
Super Sunday.
Yeah, it's bank
Good.
holiday on Monday. That was like.
Yeah. Yes. I hope you have got a hangover too, and I hope you really do. Are you staying over in Leeds?
No, getting the train back.
I'll train back as well. Yeah. If unless you get so drunk that you miss it,
Well,
which
no,
is something I would do.
Lots of people look after me. I'll be okay.
Yeah. Fair enough. Gibbo, you're going to watch the game on Sunday. You're not going to bother.
I'll see how the mood takes me, but I'll probably have it on and be doing some other stuff. And just to say, Gibbo, the only person who respects the Conference League, this is coming from a bloke who calls Spurs fans entitled for wanting to win games, turns his nose up at any trophy we can win. Double standards, mate. That's why he's the boss. Double standards. But yeah, mate, I'll put it on and I'll just go about my business. And if it's a good game, I might sit there and watch it for a bit. But yeah, just get it out the way. But it was nice to have a chat tonight. I think it was relatively positive at times for such a poor period of time. And it was a good chat. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, good. And I felt like Gibbo, we had a bit of the old Gibbo back tonight. Felt like you were back on it.
Yeah, I've had a lot on me plate, mate. So
yeah, well, Spurs do that to anyone anyway,
yeah,
regardless of life.
Yeah, they've done me in, mate. That loss to Villa, that was a tough weekend round here.
Yeah. Do you know, for me, I've still not recovered from Sheffield away in the cup. That was the moment.
Let's not relive
Gibbo and Jack know well because I phoned up from the car park.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Let's not relive the bad times. We got one game to go. Let's look forward.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. All right. And any a good week for you, planned, Jack? What's going on over in the States this week?
What's going on in the States? Well, we've got I've got a full week of work. I got a couple of I got some local clubs that are playing. I'm going to watch the U20 in the World Cup for the Americans. They play tomorrow. I see England won today. That's nice. And I'm going to get prepared to get ready for my weekend. I just came off a knee surgery, and I'm going to start rehabbing that. And so I've got a full week. Looking forward to getting together this weekend and watching the game.
Cool to ask a really good question. Before you answer it, by the way, I'm going to hazard a guess. Jack, how tall are you? You're definitely taller than me.
6'1".
Probably definite. I reckon 6'2". What do you reckon, Gibbo?
6'1".
6'1". Becky, you got any advances on 6'2", 6'1"?
6 foot.
6 foot. Even
Spot on.
6 foot.
Spot on.
What about you then, Craig? How tall are you?
Well, I'm taller in real life, mate, than what I look on screen, as Caller said earlier. So
Caller's definitely taller in real life.
Yeah, no, I'm only 5'8" and a half.
Oh yeah,
the half's important.
The half's very important.
That is very important. Yeah, but yeah, no, all good. All right then, guys. Well, have a fantastic week. The last thing to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Guys.